We recently got both the ONEXPLAYER X1 Mini and AMD models in for review. If you haven't already watched the AMD review, check it out for more in-depth coverage. This one is for the X1 Mini, with some comparisons to the AMD model. Before we start, please take a moment to subscribe if you have not already. Thanks. The ONEXPLAYER X1 Mini measures around 8.2 by 5.07 by 0.78 inches and weighs 737 grams without the controllers attached. With controllers attached, it measures around 12.4 inches and weighs 859 grams. The display is an 8.8 inch 144Hz LTPS touchscreen of 2560 by 1600 resolution. Compared to its larger brother, which has a larger 10.95 inch display but lower 120Hz refresh rate, there's some differences here. There is a 1 megapixel camera which supports Windows Hello for facial unlocking. On the left side is a covered slot for attaching the controllers to, and it's the same on the right side. Along the top we have a power button with integrated fingerprint scanner, volume buttons and a button for bringing up the ONEXPLAYER Control Center overlay. Next there is a USB 4 port, followed by a USB-A 3.2 port and a 3.5mm headphone port. On the bottom there is one USB-C 4 port, a covered OCuLink port and a micro SD card slot. The back features a built-in adjustable kickstand. Available separately are the ONEXPLAYER controllers. These are the left and right sides of controls that attach to the sides of both the X1 Mini and AMD models. It has your standard gaming controls, including Hall effect analogues. It also comes with a detachable D-pad top to suit your preference. The controllers simply slide and lock into place on the sides of the X1 Mini. There is a small button on the back to unlock and slide them back off. The connection feels strong and there's very little movement between the controller and device. Available to buy separately is the controller connector. This acts like a base for your controllers and again slides and locks into place. It has a 12,000 mAh rechargeable battery inside and it connects via a USB dongle which is located inside the connector. You can connect this to any Windows device if you wish to. We did notice a bit of movement between the two controllers and the connector. Next we have the attachable keyboard. It very easily connects via pogo pins, magnets to keep it in place. The connection is strong enough to not disconnect when the X1 Mini is lifted, but don't try lifting it with the keyboard. One annoyance is there is no magnet at the top of the keyboard to help keep the keyboard closed. The X1 AMD has one, it looks far nicer and remains closed as a result. The keys are a good size and height profile for the size of the keyboard. It's a little smaller than what you would find on a laptop keyboard. I wrote this review using the keyboard and it was an overall okay experience, but the larger X1 AMD keyboard was definitely more comfortable. And last but not least is the case for the X1 Mini. It has a strong finish on the outside and a softer material on the inside. It is large enough to fit both the X1 Mini and the keyboard attachment. It's definitely worth using to help protect against knocks and scrapes whilst not in use. Like the ONEXPLAYER X1 AMD, the Mini comes with the popular AMD Ryzen 7 8840U CPU with AMD Radeon 780M GPU. We have seen this in various handhelds this year and we know it's a great performer for gaming. It supports up to 64GB LPDDR5X RAM and for storage from 1TB to 2TB M.2 SSD. For communications there is Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2. Power in it all is a 65.02 Wh rechargeable battery. We ran Cinebench on a loop and got a battery life of exactly 2 hours. That's 3 minutes longer than the X1 AMD model. Average usage will vary, but expect it to be around 6 to 8 hours. Whilst running Cinebench, we also tested the fan noise and temperature. We got a highest fan noise of 60 decibels and highest temperature of 62 degrees C, both slightly lower than the AMD model by 2 decibels and degrees respectively. We will now run some system benchmarks to see how it performs with its X1 AMD counterpart, as well as some other handhelds. We start off with some fairly low benchmark scores for the X1 Mini on PC Mark, though to be fair, the X1 model did also score low. They are both lower scores than the GPD models. Maybe slightly slower RAM or SSD speeds are holding it back a little, but it's not a great start. For Cinebench, which tests the single or multi-core performance of the CPU, we see around the same scores for single core. The X1 Mini does take the lead in first place for multi-core performance, with the AMD model very close behind, a great result here. For 3D Mark, we are running TimeSpy, Night Raid and Firestrike benchmarks. We see essentially the same scores for TimeSpy, slightly above in Night Raid, and a noticeably lower gap when compared to the X1 AMD model. Overall though, the scores are generally in the higher, if not the highest range, which is great to see. Next are some gaming benchmarks at 1080p and 720p across a range of different TDPs for performance comparisons. On Forza Horizon 5 at 1080p we see excellent scores at 98 frames per second, and at 720p across the TDP range we again see high frames per second, swapping first and second place with the AMD model, very impressive. For Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we see the X1 Mini take second place behind the X1 AMD at 1080p. At 720p we generally see great scores across the TDP range, either the same or slightly lower than the AMD model, but beating all the others. For Street Fighter 6 we pushed the handhelds to their limits by running on the highest graphic settings. At 1080p we overall see very good frames per second for the X1 Mini, and at 720p the frame rates remain amongst the highest scoring. Our last benchmark is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. We see just a 2 frame difference to first place, well within margin of error, and at 720p we essentially see identical scores to the AMD model. This is a GPU biased game, and the 780M GPU basically performs the same. We are able to take advantage of an eGPU, such as the ONEXPLAYER ONEXGPU or the GPD G1. This will give us a massive boost in performance, not only for gaming, but also tasks such as image and video editing and encoding. We connect the ONEXGPU via OCuLink for the best performance and ran the following games at 2560 by 1600 resolution. On Forza Horizon 5 we got 130 FPS, on Shadow of the Tomb Raider we got 131 FPS, and on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 we got 92 FPS. That's a large increase in performance, especially considering the 1600p screen resolution. Let's take a look at some games with the best resolution and graphics settings that are actually playable, along with some other settings if you want higher frames per second.
Through the desert engines roaring like a beast, and Forza Horizon 5, I'm the king of the streets. Playtime popping, rinse, spin so fly, from the mountains to the beaches, I'm touching the sky. Drifting through the corners, leaving dust on my way. This open world, right on mistake, I'm great. Righteous over mission, sounds the name of the game. Through the ages, he's spinning, putting villains to shame. From the pyramids to space, he's breaking every box, dodging every hazard, outsmarting all the blocks. Out, lose power and a feeling's right, crash pinnacles, walk away, no one can hide. In the dungeons of Hindenburg, the legends take their stand. With the sword in my grip, I'm the mightiest in the land. Closest back to cold, I'm a wizard with a plan. Monsters in my path, but I never break a pin. With every dungeon deeper, I'm climbing to the top. The hero's journey's mine and the threats don't stop. I see blue skies above, angels in my sights, but I'm not in for love. Cards in my hand and the clock is fast. It's a race against time, gotta make this last. Foghorn on the edge where the neon lights flash. In this heaven's game, I'm the one who dance. Let us know in the comments what you think of 3-in-1 laptop, tablet and gaming handhelds.
Do you prefer a standard gaming handheld like the GPD Win 4, a combined one like the WinMax 2, or the versatility of the ONEXPLAYER X1 series? Like the X1 AMD model, the X1 Mini fits in an interesting niche of 3-in-1 tablets, laptop and gaming handhelds. You can start the day browsing with a tablet, write a Word document with the keyboard attached, and then later attach the controllers or use the controller connector and enjoy some gaming either as a handheld or on a desk. With this you get a bit more choice on how you want to use the X1. However, I find the lack of magnet to hold the keyboard closed a bit of an annoyance and ugly when it's folded sitting on a desk. One thing we could not complain about was the performance. We saw some great benchmark results from the X1 Mini. This is partly due to the newer AMD graphics drivers actually working well compared to their older drivers. Also, do keep in mind that it has OCuLink support. The performance increase is great and we definitely have no complaints here. The ONEXPLAYER X1 Mini is perhaps suited for someone that desires a device that is less orientated for office style work due to the smaller display and keyboard. It can of course do this, but it's more preferable on the larger X1 AMD model. This one is more for your tablet use and definitely for handheld gaming, which it excels at. You can learn more about the ONEXPLAYER X1 Mini and AMD models and order yours today from us at DroiX.co.uk and DroiX.net for worldwide shipping. Use the discount code OXPX1M50FF for 5% off on the checkout. The code is valid for 1 month of the posting of this review and cannot be used during store sales or other promotions. That wraps up our ONEXPLAYER X1 Mini review. We hope you have found it useful. Please subscribe to keep up to date with our latest videos. Thanks for watching and we will see you in the next one.